There is no such thing. No, I did not. Yes, she said yes. Oh, okay, and what's his name? Jack, but I don't know whether it's Jack England or... I'll go ask. Yeah, yeah. Reverend Joanna. Welcome home. Unitarian Universalism is unambiguously, unapologetically progressive. This church affirms the inherent worth and dignity of all people through our work with anti-racism, anti-oppression, supporting the LGBTQIA+ community, working for reproductive justice, voting rights, and other issues as needed. We seek to build beloved community not only here, but out in our surrounding area as well, and we bring a spirit of joy to it all. I want to let you know that we are doing something pretty exciting next Saturday. Cedar Park Pride and Leander Pride are working together. They are holding their Queer Empower Pride Conference and Festival here Saturday from noon until 7. Thank you everyone who has been volunteering to help them out with this. And there is still an opportunity to help out. At noon today, we are going to be doing what we call hands-on live oak, which means basically sprucing up, getting ready for company. So if you can help with that, let me or Joel, our president who is running soundboard, let either one of us know after the service so we can make sure that we order enough food because lunch will be provided. Not that you needed an incentive, but you got to keep up your strength. It is so good to be here together this morning. Would you please rise either in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. You are.
Could we have the stage left be our leaders and stage right be our followers on the canon? Thank you. Hold our last notes. Thank you. Go ahead and take a seat.
Welcome to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Keegan Sarwate, and one thing I love about Live Oak is the community we have here. Let me adjust this mic more. I'd like to welcome any guests we might have today. If this is your first time here, please stop by the visitors table so we can meet you and answer any questions that you might have. As part of our mission, we want to enhance the connections between each of us and also with the outside world. You can stay connected with everything happening at Live Oak through our weekly email newsletter. There's a link on our homepage. And during this worship service, no need to put your phone away. We encourage you to post on social media things you hear today and maybe even an invitation for a friend to join you next week. And today our chalice is being lit by Benson. And now, here and at home, let us light our chalices with these words by Mercedes Lucero. This is for the ones who never gave up, the ones who carried dreams of love bigger than anyone thought possible and who made it possible, the ones who showed up so that we could show out today and every day. This is a congregation bound not by creed, but by covenant. May those in agreement affirm this covenant now. We affirm a caring community of and for all ages, seeking wisdom, doing service, and living with integrity. In our diversity, our covenant holds us in unity as we celebrate our shared spiritual journey.
And speaking of covenant, today is in the life of our congregation. We are being transformed. Our newest members are going to bring new ideas, new desires, new energies, and new opportunities to us. And we are going to share our ideas, desires, energies, and projects with them. Our covenant securely grounds us, but it also resonates with new life. As George Kimball Beach put it, people don't join a covenanted community, rather they constitute it. There is no it without them, and each time that new folks join, the whole is literally reconstituted.
It's a special joy and certainly a privilege for me and an honor to represent the membership committee and call forth the following people who have met the conditions for membership at Live Oak. So if you will come forward, and you can bring your children also. It's Candy Gross, Crystal Gervais, Samantha Foss, Cassie England, and Eileen Bersu.
Do you want us to come up? Or you want
Yes, come on
Yes,
up.
come
on
to the
up.
stage.
And we extend a special welcome to the children of our members. We celebrate you, and we are so glad that you are here. Today, the identity of all of our members, old and new, is changing. This congregation gets a new identity because you change us. We are now your church, and you change because you now add a member of Live Oak to your identity. Simply put, with these promises we make to each other, you become ours and we become yours. Will the members of the congregation please stand in body or in spirit and join me in our words of commitment? We, the members of Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church, welcome you into membership. We promise to walk along with you in this spiritual journey, to work together with you to strengthen this liberal religious community, and to make for a just and a peaceful world come alive. And will the new members, please say your words.
We pledge with our hands and hearts to contribute to the common good of this liberal religious community and to join in the spirit of love, reason, and freedom that we find here. We join you in the mission to embrace joy, enrich connections, encourage growth, and empower dreams.
We'll check on that later. And let's see, we may have missed someone. I wasn't sure if they were coming today. Adele or? Okay, Adele, please come forward. Oh, there we go. So that is a perfect way to, unfortunately, but to lead into my next words. And members in the pews, you may sit down, but if y'all would still remain up here, thank you, Adele. Let us welcome these new members into our fold. Let us give them the best of our tradition, who we have been and who we are today. But let us also open ourselves to the ways in which they are going to teach and transform us and share in the construction of the community that together we are becoming. As I just proved, neither members or churches or ministers are perfect. If you hang around here long enough, one of two things, and possibly both, may happen to you. Eventually, the church may disappoint you, or you may disappoint the church. A time may come that we fail to act or respond to something that you are sure that we should have. A time may come when you can't do something the church asks of you. It is not that what happened isn't important, it is. But what is most important is what happens next. As long as we live in a covenanted community seeking right relationship, Our commitment to each other will be strengthened, and we will grow as individuals and as a healthy community.
So Live Hope, let's continue enriching these connections by helping our newest members make a home for themselves here with us. So I invite you afterwards to learn their stories and then share your own with them, because these are incredible people, and I want you to know them. Make sure to tell them what you love about Live Oak and your favorite ways to be involved so that they can plug into whatever speaks to them. So if anyone here today is interested in joining Live Oak, please consider joining us at our next Exploring Membership meeting, which is going to be on August 6th, and that will be announced in the newsletter and give you more details. And if you have any questions about membership, please, you can see me, or you can go to the welcome table out in the narthex. And so to you, welcome to Live Oak. We have a gift bag for each of you, and inside of it's going to be a small chalice, because at Live Oak it's important that what happens here does not stay here. And we hope that you will find ways to keep the chalice burning bright in your home and in your heart. And then as you go exit the chalice, or the chancel, sorry, and get your chalice, let's all welcome them with some heartfelt, more applause.
A special part of Unitarian Universalist Sunday services is our time of sharing joys and sorrows. And I think of it as the time when we keep vigil for one another, when we give one another the gift of being present to those among us who have had some special milestone in their personal lives or some particular joy or sorrow that it's important for the congregation to know. And today, Dan Scott shares what is a joy. He is 76 years young today. And we have an anonymous joy. Anonymous would like to share the joy that they have they've been 90 days clean from crystal meth. Their judge would like to see continuing involvement in a Christian church, but they look forward to rejoining our beloved community soon. Often what is heavy on our hearts are our own fears that we have fallen short. We know that we have left undone those things which we ought to have done, and we have done those things which we ought not to have done. May we have the courage to be honest with ourselves, the willingness to make amends, and the compassion to accept forgiveness from others and from ourselves, trusting in the assurance that imperfection is expected, and love is the guiding and healing force with which we can align our lives. Today, in our time of wonder, we are going old school, all the way back to the 1980s. What was then and is still an incredibly controversial book to some people. Y'all aren't going to find this controversial at all. It is a classic. And for Unitarian Universalism, it has been something that ever since then we have included in our worship services, in our faith development time, and in many of our curriculums. So this is Heather Has Two Mommies by Leslie Newman, illustrated by Laura Cornell. Heather lives in a little house with a big apple tree in the front yard and lots of tall grass in the backyard. Heather's favorite number is 2. Heather has 2 pets, a ginger-colored cat named Ginger Snap and a big black dog named Midnight. Heather also has 2 mommies, Mama Jane and Mama Kate. Mama Kate is a doctor. She has 2 stethoscopes so that she and Heather can listen to each other's heartbeats. Mama Jane is a carpenter. She has 2 hammers so she and Heather can build things together. Heather and her mommies have lots of fun together. On sunny days, they go to the park. On rainy days, they stay inside and bake cookies. Heather likes to eat 2 ginger snaps and drink a big glass of milk. One day, Mama Kate and Mama Jane tell Heather that they have a surprise for her. "You're going to start school next week," Mama Kate says. "There'll be lots of other kids to play with and a teacher named Ms. Molly," adds Mama Jane. "Her pets have to stay at home, but Heather can take her favorite blue blanket and favorite red cup." Soon, the big day arrives, and Mama Kate and Mama Jane take Heather to her new school, and there are so many things to play with. Soon it's time for Mama Jane and Mama Kate to leave. They kiss Heather goodbye, and Heather cries, but only a little. Heather has lots of fun at her new school, building a tower with blocks, dressing like a firefighter, drinking apple juice at snack time, and resting at nap time. After nap time, Ms. Molly reads a story about a boy whose father is a veterinarian. "My mommy is a veterinarian," says Juan. "My daddy is a people doctor," shouts David. "My mommy is a people doctor too," Heather shouts. "What does your daddy do?" David asks Heather. "I don't have a daddy," she says. "I have an idea," Ms. Molly says. "Let's all draw pictures of our families." Juan draws his mommy, daddy, and big brother. Miriam draws her mommy and her sister. Stacy draws her daddy and her papa. Joshua hangs up the picture he drew of his mommy and stepfather dropping him off at his daddy's house. Emily tapes up the picture she drew of her grandma and their 2 puppies. David straightens the picture that he drew of the day his mommy and daddy brought his new sister home. Ms. Molly looks at all the pictures. Each family is special. The most important thing about a family is that all the people in it love each other. Soon, Heather's first day of school is over. When her mommies get there, she shows them all the pictures. "This is the mommy I love best," she says, pointing to her picture. "And this is the mommy I love the best," she says, pointing again. Mama Kate and Mama Jane both laugh as Heather gives each of them 2 kisses, and then she takes their hands and they all head home. And that is the end of this very controversial story. And, as you will hear later in the sermon, it is dated in some ways, and there is still farther than that we can go.
And now, would you please rise in body or in spirit for "May Nothing Evil Cross This Door."
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. Peace of walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with with laughter drawn, the love is shelved, and though they sheltering miles of them, they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Our reading today comes from Queering Faith by Alex Capitan. As a UU, I was raised to ask questions. I was raised to question everything that was presented by society as normal in my life. The segregation and racism of my hometown, the idea that adults knew more than children and youth, the expectation that I was a girl who would grow up to be straight. I was taught to honor my own truth. I was taught that my truth was true, even if it didn't line up with what I was told was supposed to be my truth. I was taught that there is no one ultimate, absolute, universal truth, that what makes our world beautiful and what makes our community strong is that everyone has a different truth, and everyone's truth is true. So when I was 13 and all of my friends were crushing out on boys, I wondered what my truth was. When I ascertained that, yes, I was attracted to boys, I next wondered if that was all there was to the story. I began thinking of myself as bi-ish, then bi, then pansexual, then queer. Instead of agonizing over figuring out who I was or struggling with my sexuality or denying my true self, I was blessed with the space to simply allow my truth to be true, even as that truth changed over time. This journey of living into my truth wasn't a linear search for who I really was, discarding different lies or half-truths as I went along until I found the one true, ultimate, enduring truth about who I was. When I was 16, I was bi-ish. That was my truth. Who I am today does not negate who I was when I was 6 or 16 or 26. All of these truths are true. My gender is also a story of many truths. Although the word genderqueer was originally coined in the 90s, I certainly didn't have access to it or to any non-binary role models in the wider world. I had no language to describe who I was, so I simply was. I was excessively feminine and masculine all at once, drawn to theater and drag and art, understanding my body as both intimate and foreign, as a canvas for expression. I chafed at every expectation the world had made for me based on my perceived gender. I knew what wasn't true, so I made choices, one by one, that brought me closer to ease and closer to myself. The mythology of the closet is that I should have struggled for years under the weight of being different, that once I realized who I really was, I should have lived in pain or suffering, trying to deny or suppress my deviance, that when I felt I had no other choice, I should have eventually screwed up the courage to come out, and that finally I should have burst out of the closet I had been living in, fully formed as my new, authentic self, cutting all ties to the miserable and false me that I had been before. Although this narrative is a patchwork that reflects many people's truths, it is certainly not a universal truth, and none of it is my truth. I was born outside the closet, thanks to generations of fierce ancestors who paved the way and made this possible for me. And thanks to Unitarian Universalism. Thanks to my queer UU faith.
Look at me, I will never pass for the perfect bride or a perfect daughter. Can it be? I'm not meant to play this part. Now I see that if I were truly to be myself, I would break my family's heart. girl I see staring straight back at me. Why is my reflection someone I don't know? Somehow I cannot hide who I am, though I've tried. When will my reflection show who I am inside? When will my reflection show who I am inside?
I too, as it said in that reading, am so grateful for those fierce ancestors who came before me. And today, especially those fierce ancestors in the 1960s who moved this faith to becoming queer, what we called at that point queer welcoming, and what we now would probably call queer affirming, because it's about that Unitarian Universalist history with queerness. We know that queer people have always, since the early 1800s, but of course, for a lot of that early history, it is something that we have to make little clues here and there. Many Unitarian scholars think that it's quite possible that the person we consider to be the founder of American Unitarianism, William Ellery Channing, was perhaps gay because in his journals he would write about his struggles with his unnatural desires, right? What would that mean in the early 1800s? We also know that a little bit more like in the mid-1800s, you had women who were coming into ministry, late 1800s. Some of them were referred to as the Iowa Sisterhood. These were these pioneer women ministers going out to remote areas to be the ministers for Unitarian churches for housekeeping purposes. They called the person their wife, but they were just roommates, right? Always been queer people in their faith. And we know more in getting into the 1900s, like the 1940s, you could go to prison for that, or worse. But there are the stories of churches who had that bachelor minister who, it was kind of an open secret that they were gay, but of course never written down, never really spoken about in public. And then we began speaking in public. We began coming out of the closet, and now we are finding much of this history. And I expect that some of these what we now consider to be like, the firsts, I expect that over the next 20 or 30 years that these are going to change, because at that time, the internet wasn't invented. It wasn't something you would put in the newspaper, but as I suspect as little local historians go into their church archives, we're going to be getting more and more stories like this. But what is documented is 1957, Reverend Ernest Pipes Jr. performs the first documented same-sex wedding. This is going to be a very, very brief overview. I'm going to have to leave out a lot of things, but just to kind of give you a picture of our history. 1969, Reverend James Stoll publicly came out as gay, And so then you had all of these people sort of behind the scenes working in the 1960s, so that in 1970, the Unitarian Universalist Assembly, or Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, this happens every year. We send representatives, including from here, from all of our congregations. They get together for our General Assembly, and they do the business of our association. And they passed a general resolution to end discrimination against bisexuals and homosexuals. This is 1970. That's the kind of language that they used. And a proposal to develop sex education programs that promoted a healthy attitude toward all forms of sexuality. This was huge. In 1971, they came out with it. At that time, it was called About Your Sexuality, AYS. And I know there are some people raised UU that have actually gone through that program. Later, it was turned into what we have today, the Our Whole Lives, or OWL program. We got some teachers here in the congregation of this. And this was huge. As you heard about in that reading, when you are teaching inclusive, comprehensive sexuality education, what it means for the children and for their parents and for the members of the congregation is that there is no need for a closet in this faith. As that reading said, the writer said, I was born outside the closet. I was raised in this faith. And the thing about sex ed is that when you educate people, it's not just about those specific little details. It changes a whole person's worldview. Well, what does love really mean? What does marriage really mean? What does identity and gender really mean? There is a reason that religious conservatives are fighting so very hard against education right now, whether it is anti-racism education or sex education or simply inclusive books in our library. They understand that education changes not only what you think, but how you think. 1973, the UUA actually created a funded office called the Office of Gay Affairs. At a certain point, they changed the name of that to, at first it was like gay and lesbian concerns, all the way to where we are now with LGBTQIA+. 1984, passed a resolution supporting, they were already for a long time, there had been ministers who were conducting same-sex weddings. And so this was then, okay, we are putting this as one of the elements of our religious association, that we do that. 1986, a resolution opposing discrimination against those with AIDS. Again, for those of you who were living at that time, think of what that meant. 86, this is pre-cocktail, right? That was a big thing to do. 1988, Leslie Rebecca Phillips, openly transgender, fellowshipped by the UUA and ordained by a UU church. 89 is when we created the Welcoming Congregation program. And what this did is it was a program, this church did it. We have a certificate somewhere up on the wall. It was a program that the whole church would enter into, first of all, to identify and deal with any homophobia that you had absorbed in your life, but then also teaching how to be explicitly welcoming, how to do things like when you told a story for the children, not to say mommies and daddies, right, but to talk about parents or caregivers. One of our members this week said something about, I like the fact that it's just part of the culture of Live Oak that we'll say, who is your adult to our children? I think that you sometimes need to ask the minister, who is your adult? 2007, we affirmed transgender identity. 2021, we passed a resolution condemning anti-trans legislation and calling for its repeal. That was in 21, even before the worst of the legislation was being passed, but we saw what was coming. This is our history, and I am so glad that we have this history, but we're not done. It would be easy, right? It would be really easy to look at some of these other faiths that are really struggling with, they're struggling just to not be hateful. That's not the rubric we are going by. We are going by something different for us. And so I will tell you, not only are we not at the end, we are just now getting to the point where we can do the really deep work of asking ourselves and discussing, what does it mean to queer the church, to queer Unitarian Universalism, and to queer our society? So let's talk a little bit about queer and what that means and what it means to queer something. No, Edna, it doesn't mean that you got to go get gay married. Although if you're looking for an excuse, come and talk to me. We can work this out. So queer, first of all, there is a generational divide, which is if we are older, we are aware of a time when queer was used as a slur. And so we still may kind of flinch when we hear it. And that can be true, and what is also true is that this is a term that has been reclaimed by the LGBTQIA+ community. We have reclaimed it. I mean, one part, I don't think we can deny the fact that there is a pragmatic element to this of it's a heck of a lot easier to say queer than to keep saying LGBTQIA+, or as they say on social media now, LGBTQA. I like that one. But queer is actually referring to something much bigger than simply being gay or lesbian. And that's why the book, Heather Has Two Mommies, which is a absolutely great book, and I think we should still use it, still have it in our library. But it also reflects the thinking of that time. To queer something is to be transgressive. And it is, to be transgressive means to challenge the standards, the societal standards of what is right, what is good, morality, beliefs, taste, music. Can a black performer, there we go, can a male performer perform a song that is intended for a female voice? And then how does that bring in race too? We're really struggling with this right now. This whole thing of in the arts, who can do what, right? Is it okay for a gay actor to play someone straight? Okay, is it okay for a straight actor to play someone gay? These are the kinds of things that we are struggling with. And this is what it means to queer our world, is to call all of those things into question and to question what is normal. That's the big thing with queering, is that we dispense with the idea that there is a normalcy that everyone should try to emulate. What does normal mean in our society? So often what it means is white, male, cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied, neurotypical, Christian, as we heard in The Joy and Sorrow today. The judge wants this person to go to a Christian church. That's normal. American, English speaking. This is our rubric for normalcy. And so anything outside of that is considered to be outside of normal. And so queerness questions all of this because it's not actually based necessarily in numbers. Right now in the US, there are 164.38 million males and 167.51 million females. 164, 167. So male, if we're going by numbers, That ain't normal. But that is the reason why when a woman has a heart attack, she may not even know it. Our definition of normal is male, and so all of the information around heart attacks is based on what happens when a man has a heart attack. Queer theory, that's what we're talking about with queering, is rooted in post-structuralism, which teaches that there is no such thing as a single, universal, absolute truth, that there are always multiple, even contradictory, equally true interpretations and meanings of something. Queer theory also questions everything that is presented as truth based on social norms like the gender binary. It upends and rejects those norms. Quote by Alex Capitan, who you heard in the reading. So what does it mean in your life to begin questioning those things that we just assume to be true? This is why queerness can change everything, and it is why so many people are fighting against it, because once you start questioning those things, then more and more questions appear. Y'all ever heard this metaphor about the camel? There's this saying, don't let the camel get its nose up under the tent, because if it does, then the whole rest of the camel is coming on in. Once you have, let's say, a lesbian couple, what does that do to your understanding about gender roles in a marriage, right? Something that gay and lesbian couples, a question that they have often gotten, and I know that you are still getting this question, is which of you is the man and which of you is the woman? Because again, there is this model that is based in heterosexism, often patriarchal thinking. And so queerness makes us question all of that. This is a cartoon, a picture that I love from Oxfam. Oxfam is a worldwide organization. It brings together organizations all over the world to deal with issues related to poverty and making better lives for people. But they also have committed to being anti-oppressive in this, being anti-racist, being pro-LGBTQIA+. And so they have come out with the Queer Joy Manifesto, blossoming outside of rigid gender roles and norms, seeing LGBTQIA+ people in leadership roles, knowing I can be myself without fear of violence, expressing myself freely through clothes, being surrounded by a diverse and powerful community. The thing is, with queerness, you don't have to be gay, you don't have to be trans. The work that we do to queer our world benefits all of us. It liberates all of us. And we all have access to this kind of joy, to shake off the rigid expectations and boundaries that we have grown up with, to be transgressive. For the white, male, cisgender, heterosexual folks today, if you want a taste for how just pernicious the whole idea of normalcy is, paint your fingernails blue this week and just go about your normal life. See who reacts to it. You may be surprised. I've heard this is something that among younger men, more and more, again, cisgender, straight men are doing. I've heard a lot of younger women say, you know what, when I see that, I feel like I'm safer. I've heard queer folks say that too. Don't get too attached to it. At some point, someone's going to realize it, and that's going to be another way to divert things. How can you experience queer joy in your life this week? And I invite you now to join me in a time of reflection in word and in silence. Make yourself a little bit more comfortable. These are the words of Amy Petrie Shaw. I was talking with God the other day, because we're cool like that. And God said, I want you to tell people something. And I was kind of busy, so I pretended like I didn't hear. And God poked me and said, I'm not kidding, pay attention, because we're cool, but we aren't that cool. And I know when I've pushed it way too far. So I put down my coffee cup and I turned around. And God said, let me hang a word around your neck so that everyone can see it. And you'd better speak it when you're out, because I'll know if you don't. And it will be heavy, so heavy on your soul. And a word was hung around my neck to take out the people standing, to take to the people standing in the streets. A word was preached into my ear and laid into my mouth and burned into my heart until all I could see was the shape of the word, and the word was all, and the word was love. And God said, now get out, because you don't have all day, and that word is going to get heavier, and you've got some work to do. So I'm taking my word out into the world. Love came down on this green earth. Love came down and turned over the tables and set the world on its end. Love made it clear that it was the word for the poor and the brokenhearted, for the queer boy and the angry girl. Love was the word for late-night hookers and long-haul truckers, for the heroin junkie and the runaway cutters. Love was the word for all the screwed up and pushed over and too tired and I can't take no more. Love was the word for the HIV patient and the man with no papers. Love was the word for me and for you, for the saints and the sinners and the scramblers in between. Love came down and made a way for there to be a way, and then love said, we are never going back. He who has ears, let him hear. Love said, we are all a part of something bigger, and if you cannot rise with us, if you cannot love with us, then you should get the hell out of the way, because we aren't going anywhere and you are in the path. He who has ears, let him hear. Love came down for the world to know, and I'm holding out this word, so even when you and God are just like that, you can't pretend you didn't know. I cannot put it down. Not for a politician spewing hatred, not for a minister vomiting out bile in the costume of a saint, not for money or for country or for kin. I'm holding my word in my mouth because the next time I see God, I want to be able to say, you gave me a word and I carried it just the way you asked. You gave it to me and I took it. I showed it to everyone I met. You gave it to me and I showed it to her and Jer and G and him. I showed it to them and they and those over there. I never put it down. I can never put it down. I was talking with God the other day because we're cool like that. And God said, hey, I want you to tell people something. And I was still kind of busy, so I pretended like I didn't hear. And God said, I'm not kidding. Pay attention, because while we're cool, we aren't that cool. And I know when I have pushed it way too far. So I put down my coffee cup and I turned around. And then God gave me a word, and now I've given it to you. Start moving. Let's hold that for a moment in sacred stillness. Amen and blessed be.
We are the tradition of the Free Church. Our church and our community outreach are supported not from an outside source, but from within. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. We share what is offered every week with an organization that upholds our Unitarian Universalist values. This month, we are helping to empower the dream of IACT, Interfaith Action of Central Texas. And now its director, Simone Talma-Flowers, will tell us more.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for such a beautiful service. I'm so moved. And love, I carry love. So I'm Simone Talma-Flowers, and I serve as the Director of Interfaith Action of Central Texas. Our mission is to cultivate peace and respect through interfaith dialogue, service, and celebration. So everything that we do is about breaking down the barriers that divide us. So our message is love. So everything that was said today just resonated in my heart. So I walk the talk, and however you say it, So I am just thankful for the work that you all have been doing. You all have been supporting IAC for decades. So everything that we do, as I mentioned, is to break down the barriers that divide us. We bring people of all faiths and cultures together so that they can see the beauty of each other. And we do this in a multitude of ways. One is through service, where many of you all are familiar with our Hands-on Housing program. We repair homes for low-income homeowners, especially, it started off just in East Austin, where it was the most impoverished area in Austin, but now we're all over the city because poverty is all over. So we work with different congregations coming in to repair homes for low-income homeowners, and primarily widows and people who are elderly and people who are disabled. And and a lot of times too, you work alongside other congregations and you get to meet with people. And at the end of the day, you have this beautiful home where a homeowner would say, thank you for coming into my home. I didn't know people from this community cared about me. So it's twofold. One, we get to share our compassion and our love with someone who needs some support. And two, you get to work alongside others and build relationships with other people in doing good together. We also work with refugees, teaching English language, instruction, and cultural orientation. And these are refugees newly arrived in Austin, Central Texas. And our goal is to make sure they have the support that they need so that they can start their new life, have this new beginning, and be welcoming. So there are lots of different opportunities to support us in these service programs that we do. And then another program that we have is the Red Bench Conversations, and we've had Red Bench Conversations here. Actually, just in January, we hosted, Live Oak, you hosted it. We were supposed to be in person, but we had the ice storm, if you remember. So we did it virtually. And the topic was gender identities, and it was such a rich conversation. And then we also do the Passport program, where every month we go to different congregations so that we can learn about each other and just be in a different space so that we can see how different communities share love. All our work is about knowing who our neighbors are, and we just do it in different ways. And I am just so thankful to be here today and to share a little bit about IAC and to meet you and be in this space. So thank you very much.
Thank you. May an offering be received in gratitude and love.
to invite you this morning to join in our Faith Development Hour following the service. Our Faith Development Hour this summer is running from 11:15 to 12:15. Our adults and our teens are in room 105, where we will have a trip conductor. Becky is our trip conductor into the fifth dimension of the Twilight Zone, where we will be watching The Howling Man and discussing and dissecting evil through the lens of Unitarian Universalism. We will have the kids upstairs, and parents are going to have you take your kids upstairs, first grade through fifth grade, to room 205 with Nancy Sheehy, where the kids are going to be learning about our second principle and how we care for each other by making cards that our pastoral care team is going to be using. We also have Rainbow Connections for our kindergarten and below, where we'll be learning about, again, taking care of each other and doing a fun craft. So if you are here as an OWL parent for Taking Flight, the Taking Flight program for our 10th through 12th grade parent orientation is in room 209. And I think I've got everything covered, and if I don't, just see me out in the narthex and I'll direct you on your way. We hope to see you at Faith Development. Thank you.
And now, please rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn as we leave this friendly place. Unitarian Universalism is a transgressive religion. And if you need to know more about that, just ask me to share all of the comments I get on my TikTok videos, where I try to explain Unitarian Universalism, and people cannot understand, wait, a church that affirms LGBTQIA plus people, a church where you don't have to believe in the Trinity, a church where you don't have to believe in Jesus, a church where you don't have to believe in God. This is a transgressive religion. That's who we have always been, but it is time for us to move forward and to be transgressive about the white, cisgender, heteronormative, patriarchal model in which we all live. So may it be. Go be transgressive.
And now for the chalice extinguishing. Let us say these words to each other. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth. And now, as we depart, we extend and receive the gift of hospitality by taking the first 5 minutes to talk to someone who we don't yet know well. May we all know the blessings of friendship and community.